Hi, welcome to Legacy Keepers podcast. This is Kare, and I'm here with Anita. And our topic today is how this all began. So, you are listening to the Legacy Keepers podcast. And what I want to do today is talk to you about how the podcast started, but also how Daisy Chain Legacy Publishing started. So, Legacy Keepers podcast is like an offshoot of our publishing company. And our publishing company started to help people write aspects of their memoir so that stories don't get lost. But now I want to hear from you, Anita, because I know you originally approached me with this idea. So tell me about the beginnings for you.
Yeah, I worked for a publishing companies for several years, both sides of it actually. And so I was familiar with that. And from time to time, it would be someone's memoir. Um, and I could just see that author feeling like this is a gift for their family. And, at some point in our lives, we don't think about death or what's going to happen down the road. We're just kind of living our life. But at some point it hits us like, who's going to remember me, right?
Mhm.
And that kind of was triggered by a friend of mine who lost three parents, like a step parent and two parents within a short period of time, like 1 to 2 years. And her mom had dementia at the end, and I think another one also was not really cognitive. And her regret was that she had not asked them more about their earlier life while they were living, or while they even had their mental faculty to talk about it. And so she was telling everybody, make sure you ask your parents, ask your grandparents about their life because it's so important.
Mhm.
And that hit me, not just about asking them, but also having it recorded because for example, like my kids and I live in the West Coast in BC, and my parents live in Ontario. And so my kids didn't grow up around them and don't
Yeah.
know, they don't know that much about them.
Mhm.
And my mom wrote my dad's story with some pictures and everything and printed it and gave it to all the grandkids so that they would one day, when they shall ask is
Mhm.
kind of um, a line from my history is when they shall ask. We don't necessarily ask now, but one day we're going to ask, like, what
Mhm.
happened in my family? And
Mhm.
if we don't have something written, uh, it could be lost.
Mhm. Yes. And when you came to me with the idea for Daisy Chain Legacy Publishing and we started talking about it and seeing whether or not, we could build a partnership around the concept, I shared with you that I had already done something like this
Mhm.
years ago, that I had come up with a very similar concept and had started to put it into play and kind of used my own mom as the guinea peg and had started drafting things in the back end, questions, interview questions, different processes for how people could capture their memoirs. And I was intrigued that you then had the same idea and even that you approached me with it, because the stars kind of were aligning in ways that you and I, had never had anticipated. But what was
Mhm.
interesting is we both right away identified that we had a passion for not losing the lessons and the wisdom and the humor, the trauma, the stories of our loved
Mhm.
ones that have gone before. Now, when I originally came up with my idea, I was just thinking about this a minute ago, which I called Scribe. Um,
Right.
my mom was still alive and well. My aunt, her sister, who was like a second mom to me, was still alive and well, although she died, very shortly after that, about 8 months after that. But my Oma, my mom, their mom had already passed. So I'm not sure what spurned me on at that time, but I did recognize that I felt like I have to start capturing some of these things. I thought this generation is going to go on. And then
Mhm.
turns out within a few years, both my mom and my aunt had passed away. And though I had captured some of my mom's story, I had never captured any of my aunt.
Yeah, I think we live in a different world right now where families no longer live in community, right?
Yes.
So it's normal for family members to live in different parts of the country or different countries. And I
Yeah.
think that is something that makes me realize even more how important it is to share those stories because it's not naturally happening. Like
Yes.
when I grew up, my Oma lived two doors down, along with my aunt and uncle, and my other cousins lived like a kilometer away, and we saw each other like if not daily, for sure weekly. And so we were
Mhm.
just part of each other's lives. And
Mhm.
so I was living the memory at that time.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like I said, my kids don't know their grandparents because they live 3,000 kilometers away. And
Yeah.
so, another really cool thing happened that made me realize how important this was. And that was my mom had her 80th birthday a couple years ago.
Mhm.
And all of us surprised her and showed up in Ontario, all the grandkids, my brother and his kids who live in BC as well. We all showed up, surprised her, and we had a little event planned with a bunch of people. And, my dad had said, "Oh, are you going to get your kids to say something?" And they were like, "What? We don't know what to say. We don't even know her." Like, and so I came up with this idea that instead of them giving a little speech, each grandchild had to come up with two questions to ask my mom so that they
Mhm.
could learn something about her life. And
Mhm.
and they could be questions that they were interested in, like what kind of music did you listen to in the 50s,
I
or
love it.
who did you go on your first date with and what was dating like,
Yeah.
when you were a teenager. And so
Yeah.
they were excited about their question because it was something they liked. And my mom just blossomed. Like she was so happy to share those stories and we all sat around and it was like a storytelling hour, right? And
Love it.
and I realized, people who are getting older, I think all of us to some degree want to share our stories. And when someone wants to listen, that's the best time because, she just enjoyed sharing a piece of her life with them. And if I should have recorded it, is what I should have done.
Yes, you
I
should.
just thought of that now. I should have recorded it.
Well,
But
and
go
you know,
ahead.
and I was just going to say that because what you said about your mother, blossoming during those questions, and how we as people really do want to share. And something came to my mind when you said that, and I was like, well, really, we want to be seen.
Yes. Yeah.
And what comes to mind, and you and I have talked about this in other podcasts, and I'm sure it's going to come up again and again. But especially as mothers, we tend to lose our identities as individuals, at least to that younger generation, and sometimes even within our significant relationship.
Mhm.
Um, so we sort of struggle as mothers with that sense of self. Who am I? And so wanting to be seen and share those stories really is about wanting those around us to understand that we are more than just this in their
Right.
eyes, that we
Right.
have a history, we have thoughts, we have opinions, that we are individual people. And that's part of what my motivation is with Daisy Chain Legacy Publishing and with Keepers podcast is giving people, any individual, a forum with which to be seen, with
Mhm.
which that people around them can actually understand them on a more individual level.
That's so true. I read I don't know, a post somewhere about that in Denmark. They
Hmm.
have these places called libraries, but instead of books, it's people. And you go
Yeah.
and sit down with a stranger, and for half an hour, they share their story to you. And I
Hmm.
just thought, what a great idea, because you're right. It's about wanting to be seen and
Yes.
being known for more than just this snapshot in time.
Yes.
I had a situation like in my 20s, I had a travel business. And,
Hmm.
it was my own company and I built it along with a business partner, really big. And I
Hmm.
had a friend who only knew me as a parent. Like he had a kid and we had a kid the same age. And so our lives were only around parenting. And then I
Yeah.
hired him to come to my office once to do some painting. We wanted to paint the office and he was a painter and I hired him and he saw me in this other environment. And he's like, who are you? Like I'm the businesswoman in that environment, right? And
Mhm.
he only knew me as the parent. And so
Yes.
it's so
Hmm.
true that when we write a memoir, especially spanning a period of time, it
Yeah,
gives the opportunity for our loved ones to see us as not just what they knew, but,
that's right.
oh, mom went through that. Or, like there's so many interesting stories that I'm sure our kids or grandchildren will be shocked to hear.
Exactly. Exactly. And as you've heard me say before, and I'm sure as our listeners have heard or will will hear,
Yeah.
um, we do know that right now we are living in a generation in which the majority of individuals are aging. They are ramping up towards like retirement, senior age, old age.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, any of us can pass away at any time, but we do have an expectation that we will live a long life.
Right.
And that the majority generation, the boomers, they're all aging and they're aging very quickly. And I think that's the issue is like, wow, there's this massive potential for information loss. And
Yes.
when I'm talking about information, I am talking about emotions. I'm talking about feelings. I'm talking about opinions. I'm talking about thoughts. I'm not just talking about facts. Facts are important. Where were you born? Where were your parents born? Where did you live? What were the facts around that? That's important to know those things. But moreover, I think it's important to know how our loved ones, how the people that went before us interpreted the life around them, and how
Mhm.
and the choices that they made, around the circumstances they found themselves in. That is very fascinating to me, and that is what I want to give a forum to. I want everybody to know that what they've experienced has value, and we're here to listen and help them capture that in writing.
I agree. And I think also we'll find that there are similarities, like different time period, different challenges, and
Mhm.
yet we're all the same in some ways. It's just I say different shit, same shit, different pile kind of idea. But
Yeah, yeah.
um, you know, that that will it might even create a way we can relate to
Yes.
different generations together. So
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
anyway, we're so looking forward to having you join us for many weeks to come with
Yes.
guests and talking about all kinds of topics regarding memoir writing and aging and just leaving a legacy to the future generations. So thanks for joining us today. This is Kare and Anita reminding you to keep your legacy alive.